I'm Eliot Hayes, a college student, just like a lot of other folks here. I spend a lot of time studying and hanging out with my friends. Me and a group of guys from history class even started a running club, which has helped me shake off those extra pounds I arrived with when I got here 5 months ago. College is fun and busy, and I really like it. I feel like I get to meet someone new and great every day. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. It was nice but kind of small for me. I wanted to see more of the world, so I came to college to learn about journalism. I've always wanted to write and tell stories. Back in my town, I had a girlfriend. Jane and I were together all through high school. She was really nice and sweet. But when high school ended, we wanted different things. She wanted to stay in our town, get married, and start a family. I wasn't ready for that. I wanted to go to college and have adventures. So, we said goodbye to each other. It was sad, but we both knew it was for the best. It wasn't until I found a secret note in my locker one morning on my way to class that I realized Valentine's Day was just around the corner and that this would be my first as a single guy. The note didn't say who it was from. At first, I thought someone was playing a joke on me, but the notes kept coming. They made me feel special and a bit curious, too. I've never had someone send me secret notes like this before. It was kind of exciting, but also a little weird. The notes quickly became uncomfortable as they started to talk about things I did every day. Like, one note mentioned the blue hoodie I wear a lot. Another talked about how I always grab a chocolate muffin at the campus cafe on Mondays. That's when I started to feel a bit weirded out. How did this person know so much about my day? Were they following me around? I decided to play detective. The first thing I did was check the handwriting on the notes. I sneakily looked at my friends' writing when they were taking notes in class or doing homework. But no luck there. None of the handwriting matched. Then, I got really into it. I noticed that the notes were written on these old-style Valentine's cards. You know, the kind that looked like they were from a long time ago. I spent hours online, trying to find out where these cards came from. I thought maybe I could find out who bought them. But that was like looking for a needle in a haystack. There were too many of these cards out there. Finally, I had another idea. I set up a small camera in a hidden spot near my locker. I figured if I could catch the person leaving the note, I'd know who it was. I felt like a spy or something, checking the camera every day to see if I caught anyone. But every time, it was a dead end. Either the person was super sneaky, or I just wasn't good at this detective stuff. The more I tried to figure it out, the more the whole thing bugged me. Who knew so much about me? And why were they doing this? It was supposed to be fun, like a mystery in one of my journalism stories, but instead it felt like someone was watching my every move. And that was not a good feeling. The whole thing came to a head on Valentine's Eve. That day I found another note. This one was different. It told me to go to this old part of the school near the abandoned art rooms. I felt nervous, but I had to know who was behind all this. When I got there, I found something really creepy. There was a box filled with old photographs. But these weren't just any photos. They were pictures of me, some from way back, even from my hometown. And in each one, there was this girl in the background. It was Rebecca. Rebecca and I used to be friends when we were really little, but she moved away and we lost touch. It hit me then. Rebecca was the one sending the notes. But how? And why? I hadn't seen her in years. I knew I had to talk to her. I found Rebecca hiding in the cafeteria the next day. She was obviously getting ready to spy on me again. When I asked her about the notes and the photos, she got really upset. She started talking about how she'd always loved me, even when we were kids. She said she has been waiting to finish school and move out of her parents' house to come and find me again. She said she read on my school website about my post-graduation plans and moved here as soon as she could. I realized that she wasn't just sending notes. She was watching me all the time. As I tried to focus on listening to her again, I realized her words were all jumbled, and she was acting really strange. She kept saying things like we were meant to be together and that she knew me better than anyone else. It was scary. Not only did I not share these feelings, I did not even recognize this person. I didn't know what to do, so I told her that I needed some time to think about everything and that I would call her that evening. She gave me her number. I was freaked out and didn't know what to do or who to go to, so I went for a walk around campus and then decided to go to my room to call my parents. The scariest part was when I went back to my dorm room that night. When I opened the door, Rebecca was there. She had gotten into my room somehow. Around her were some of my things, stuff that I thought I'd lost, like my favorite baseball cap and some books. She was talking really fast, saying things that didn't make sense. She had this wild look in her eyes. I'd never seen anyone like that before. I tried to talk to her to calm her down, but she just got more upset. I was really scared. It was like being in one of those horror movies where you think everything's okay, but then something jumps out at you. Only this was real. It was just me and Rebecca, and she was falling apart right in front of me. I didn't know what she might do next. The situation in my room with Rebecca got even scarier. First, she pulled out this big scrapbook from her bag. It was full of pictures and notes about me. She had written things next to the photos, like what I was doing or thinking that day. It was like she had been following me for a really long time, recording everything I did. Then, Rebecca did something that really freaked me out. She took out her phone and showed me a bunch of messages she had written to me, but never sent. They were full of weird promises and plans for our future together. She talked about them as if they were true, like we were going to get married and live in a house she had picked out. She even had names for kids she wanted us to have. Her eyes were so intense, like she believed every word she was saying. It was too much. I was trapped in my own room with someone who seemed like they were living in a different world. A world where she and I were together and she knew everything about me. I felt really scared and didn't know what to do. Rebecca wasn't just a secret admirer anymore. She was a stalker who had taken things way too far. I needed to find a way to calm her down and get help. I knew I had to be brave, even though I was shaking inside. I looked at Rebecca and said, "Rebecca, you need to leave my room. You can't do this. You can't just come into my life like this. You need to stop sending me notes and following me. This is really serious." Her face changed then. It was like she went from being sad to being really, really angry, and then suddenly really scared. She reached into her bag and pulled out a bottle of sleeping tablets. My heart started racing. She held the bottle tightly and said, "If I can't be with you, Eliot, then there's no point in anything. I'll take all of these." I didn't know what to do. I never felt so scared in my life. I said, "Rebecca, please don't do that. Let's just talk. You don't need to do anything like that. We can get you help." I wanted to move closer to her, to take the bottle away, but I was scared she might actually take the pills if I did something wrong. I kept talking to her, trying to sound calm, but inside I was screaming for help. I needed to keep her safe and get her help, but I didn't know how. It was the most terrifying moment ever, seeing someone I once knew as a friend in so much pain and so much danger. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Rebecca, I know you're hurting," I said. "I can see that, and I'm sorry you feel this way, but this is scary for me. You being here with those pills, it's really scaring me." Rebecca was crying now, the bottle of pills still in her hand. "But I love you, Eliot," she sobbed. "I've always loved you." I didn't know what to say, but I knew I had to be kind. "I understand you have these feelings," I told her, "but this isn't the way to deal with them. You need help, Rebecca, help that I can't give, but I can be here for you as a friend." It felt like forever, talking to her, trying to get her to see sense. I kept telling her that there were people who could help her, that she didn't have to feel this way forever. Finally, she put the bottle down, still crying. It was like a huge weight lifted off my chest. As soon as I could, I called campus security. I explained everything, making sure they knew Rebecca needed help, not punishment. They came quickly and talked to her. I stayed there the whole time, telling her it was going to be okay, that she was going to get the help she needed. After that night, I made sure to check in on Rebecca. I found out she started seeing a counselor and was getting treatment. It felt good to know she was getting better, and I learned a lot about being there for someone. even when it's scary. Sometimes, just being a friend can make a big difference. After everything that happened with Rebecca, I started to see things differently. I learned that sometimes people are going through a lot inside, stuff that we can't always see. It's important to understand that mental health is a big deal. It can make people do things that they wouldn't normally do. We need to be kind and try to understand, but we also have to take care of ourselves. I also learned that it's okay to ask for help when things get too much. It's not just about being brave by yourself. Sometimes being brave means knowing when to tell someone else. Like when I called campus security for Rebecca. This whole experience was scary, but it taught me a lot. I hope my story can help others understand that it's important to find a balance. Be kind and listen to people, but never forget to look after your own safety. We all have a part to play in taking care of each other, but we also need to take care of ourselves. That's what I'm going to do from now on. I work a normal job as a senior administrative assistant and spend most of my time either at work or at home. I've always been a bit on the quiet side, the kind that enjoys a good book or a quiet evening with family over a fun night out hopping from bar to bar. My friends often joke about how I'm too old-fashioned for my age, and maybe they're right. Dating? Well, that's never been my strong suit. I've tried the usual stuff, meeting people through friends, going to social events, but nothing ever clicked. So I thought, why not give online dating a try? I wasn't expecting much, to be honest. Maybe a nice conversation if I was lucky. That's when I met Taylor. Taylor's profile picture showed a smiling face with bright, curious eyes. We hit it off pretty quickly. Our chats were a mix of playful teasing and talking about all sorts of things, from our favorite movies to what we wanted out of life. Taylor was really interesting, smart with a great sense of humor, and always a bit mysterious in a way that kept me wanting to know more. It was fun, For the first time in a long time, I felt excited to check my messages, looking forward to what Taylor would say next. It was nice to feel that connection, even if it was just through a phone screen. So, we planned to have a virtual date on Valentine's Day. It seemed like a fun idea, especially since we lived too far apart to meet in person. Little did I know, that date would turn out to be anything but romantic. As Valentine's Day got closer, though, a few weird things started happening. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, when you're getting to know someone, it's normal to have a few mix-ups, right? Like one time, Taylor mentioned being really into hiking, but another time, Taylor said something about not liking the outdoors much. I thought maybe Taylor just got nervous and mixed things up. I do that sometimes when I'm nervous, so I understood. Then there were these strange noises around my house. Once, I was sure I heard something in the garage while chatting with Taylor, but when I checked, nothing was there. Just some boxes and the usual stuff. I figured it was probably just a cat or something outside. The weirdest thing was my internet. It would cut out for a few seconds during our video calls. I'd be talking, and suddenly Taylor's face would freeze, and then the screen would go black. I blamed my old router for that. It had been acting up for weeks, and I kept telling myself to get a new one. But despite these little odd things, I was really looking forward to our virtual date. I planned the whole evening, picked out a nice shirt, even ordered some good food. I set up my laptop in the living room, making sure everything looked nice for our video call. I was nervous, but in a good way, like how you feel before something exciting is about to happen. I remember looking at the clock, counting down the minutes until our date. I had no idea that this night was going to be a lot more than just a simple video call. It was going to be a night that I'd never, ever forget. The night of our virtual date finally arrived, and at first, everything seemed perfect. Taylor looked great, and we were both smiling and laughing. But as the night went on, things started getting weird. Taylor kept asking about my house, like how big it was and if I had any cool stuff. At first, I thought Taylor was just making conversation, but the questions kept getting more specific. Like, really specific. What kind of locks do you have on your doors? Do you have a security system? It was odd, but I tried to shrug it off, thinking maybe Taylor was just into home security or something. Then, something even stranger happened. The lights in my house flickered off and then on like a quick blink. It was so sudden that it made me jump. I laughed it off, blaming the old wiring in my house, but deep down it made me uneasy. I tried to focus back on Taylor, but part of me was now on edge, listening for any odd sounds. That's when, in the middle of our conversation, I heard this loud bang from the garage. My heart jumped. I told Taylor I needed to check it out and left my laptop on the table. Creeping towards the garage, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe I left a tool out, and it fell. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a tool. It was a person, a real-life intruder, right there in my garage. I freaked out. The intruder saw me and charged, and we got into this scuffle. It was terrifying. I managed to push the intruder away and ran back into the house, slamming and locking the door behind me. My heart was pounding like crazy. Rushing back to the laptop, I saw Taylor still on the screen. But something clicked in my mind. The questions, the noises, the internet cutting out. It was all a setup. Taylor was distracting me while this intruder broke into my house. I yelled at Taylor, asking what was going on, but there was no answer, just this cold, blank stare. Then the video feed went dead. Taylor's profile, our chat history, everything disappeared like it was never there. I called 911 as fast as I could, shaking and trying to explain what happened. But by the time the police got there, the intruder was gone. They found tire tracks outside, leading away from my house. The intruder had a getaway vehicle, a van, ready and waiting. I sat there, feeling a mix of fear and anger. I couldn't believe it. I'd been tricked, lured into this horrible situation by someone I thought I was getting to know, someone I thought I could, well, trust, but it was all a lie. A scary, dangerous lie. After the police arrived, I was still shaking like a leaf. They asked me a bunch of questions and I did my best to answer. I described Taylor as much as I could, what she looked like, how she talked. I also tried to remember everything about the intruder and the van I barely caught a glimpse of. I gave the police all the chat logs from the dating app, but since Taylor's profile was gone, I wasn't sure how much it would help. The police were really nice about it, though. They told me they'd do everything they could to find the people who did this. Once the police left, I started noticing just how much stuff was missing. My laptop from the living room, the tablet I kept on the coffee table, even some cash I had in a drawer, all gone. The worst part was seeing my grandpa's old watch missing. He gave it to me before he passed away, and it meant a lot to me. That hurt more than anything else. I felt so violated. This was my home, my safe place, and someone just barged in and took what they wanted. It wasn't just about the stuff they stole. It was the feeling of safety they took away. I couldn't help but think about all the what-ifs. What if I hadn't heard the noise? What if the intruder had gotten all the way upstairs while I was sitting in my room? That night, I hardly slept. Every little sound made me jump. I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering how I could have missed all the signs. It was a tough night, one of the longest I've ever had. After everything that happened, I knew I had to do something so that no one else would go through what I did. I went back on the dating app and wrote a warning. I told my story, urging everyone to be careful, to watch out for red flags, and not to trust too quickly. I didn't want anyone else to feel this kind of fear and betrayal. I decided to take a break from online dating. I needed time to think, to heal. I started spending more time with my family and friends, the people who've always been there for me. I guess I realized there's a lot to be said for the old-fashioned way of doing things, where you can see a person's real face, not just a picture on a screen. Looking back, I learned a hard lesson about trust. The internet can be a tricky place, where people aren't always who they say they are. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the little signs that something's not right. But I'm not giving up on meeting someone or finding love. I just know I'll be more careful next time, taking things slow and making sure what I see is really what I get. Life's a journey, and this was just a bump in the road. A scary bump, but one that's taught me a lot about being careful and valuing the real connections in my life. It's funny, isn't it? How life can be so full and yet feel so empty at the same time. There I was, the guy who had it all. A thriving business, a sleek car, a swanky apartment in the city. But at the end of the day, when the noise of the world faded away, it was just me and the echoing silence of my place. That's the thing about success. It doesn't keep you warm at night. It had been 6 months since Sarah and I called it quits. 6 months of long work hours, takeout dinners, and the occasional night out with the guys pretending I wasn't missing something. Or someone. Love wasn't something I thought I was short of. But life has its ways of showing you what you're lacking. That's when I first heard about it. The Valentine retreat. The ad popped up on my phone, sleek and promising, like it knew exactly what I was missing. A luxury dating retreat for busy professionals like you, it said. An exclusive event set in some far-off picturesque location where the real world couldn't intrude. I laughed at it at first. Me? At a dating retreat? It sounded like something out of a cheesy romance novel. But the idea stayed in my mind like a catchy tune. The promise of finding someone who understood the high-speed life I led. Someone who wouldn't feel like another entry on my crowded to-do list. Maybe, just maybe, this was what I needed. A break from the norm. A chance at something real. So there I was, filling out the online application. Describe your ideal partner, it asked. Ideal partner? I hadn't let myself think about that in a long time. I typed, erased, and typed again. Someone genuine, understanding, ambitious, yet grounded. Someone who could make me forget about the spreadsheets and deadlines, even if, just for a moment. Clicking submit sent a wave of excitement mixed with anxiety through me. What was I getting myself into? Little did I know that single click was the first step down a path far more twisted and dangerous than any business deal I'd ever encountered. It was the start of a journey that would test everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and survival. The day I arrived at the retreat, something felt off right from the start. The place was stunning, sure, nestled in the mountains, surrounded by forests, with the kind of views you'd see on postcards. But as I stepped out of the car, there was this chill in the air. And I'm not talking about the weather. The staff greeted me with smiles too wide to be real. It was like walking onto a movie set where everyone knew their lines a bit too well. Welcome to the Valentine retreat, Mr. Carter. Your stay here will be unforgettable, they said. That word, unforgettable, stuck with me, but not in a good way. My first clue that something was wrong came that night. Lying in bed, I heard muffled sounds from the room next door, like someone arguing but trying to keep it quiet. I told myself it was none of my business, but the sounds kept me awake, turning over in my mind. The next day, things got weirder. We were all asked to hand over our phones and laptops, to fully disconnect and connect with each other, they said. I get the idea, but something about how they locked our stuff away felt more controlling than comforting. Then came the accidents. During a group hike, one guy's backpack accidentally opened, and his stuff fell down a slope. At dinner, a woman's chair just happened to break when she sat down. Everyone laughed it off as bad luck, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was all planned. It was on the third day that I really started to worry. I overheard one of the staff talking in hushed tones about keeping the guests in line. Line for what? And that night, I swear I saw someone, a shadow really, standing outside my window. When I blinked, it was gone. But the fear stayed. I tried talking to some of the other guests about my concerns, but they just laughed it off. You're just not used to relaxing, one said. But this wasn't about relaxing. It was about feeling like you're part of a game you didn't know you were playing. By now, I was sure of one thing. I needed to get out. But when I asked about leaving early, the staff just gave me this cold smile and said, Mr. Carter, the retreat has only just begun. We wouldn't want you to miss out on what's coming next." What's coming next? That question echoed in my mind as I lay in bed that night, listening to the unsettling silence of the retreat, broken only by the distant sound of a door quietly closing somewhere in the darkness. The tension had been building like a storm, and I knew it was time to face it head on. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were all in danger, and I had to do something. So, I decided to confront Mr. Whitmore, the organizer, about everything that was happening. It was the biggest mistake I could have made. The moment I started questioning him, his demeanor changed. The man who had been all smiles and reassurances turned into someone completely different. His eyes were wild, his words sharp. He ranted about how people these days don't understand real love, how he was the only one who could fix modern relationships. It was like listening to a madman. Before I could react, he pressed a button on his desk, and alarms blared throughout the retreat. "Lockdown initiated," a voice announced over the speakers. Panic surged through me as I realized he had trapped us all inside. I managed to slip away in the chaos, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to find a way out. But first, I needed to get to the others. That's when I stumbled upon the chilling truth. Hidden cameras in every room, every corner. We had been watched the entire time, our every move monitored. But Mr. Whitmore wasn't done. Over the intercom, his voice boomed, announcing a twisted, deadly game. "Pair up by midnight or face the consequences," he said. It sounded like a sick joke, but I knew he was dead serious. I refused to play his game. I wouldn't let him control me like some puppet. That decision turned the retreat into a terrifying maze. Whitmore and his staff hunted me down like an animal. I dodged them, moving through shadowed hallways and locked rooms, my every breath a mix of fear and determination. The night air was cold as I ran through the grounds, ducking behind trees and bushes. The once beautiful retreat now felt like a prison with no way out. I could hear Whitmore's angry shouts, the footsteps of his staff closing in on me. Every second was a fight for survival. I knew I couldn't outrun them forever. I had to find a way to end this nightmare, to break Whitmore's grip on the retreat. It was a game of life and death, and I was determined to come out alive. There I was, running for my life in the dead of night, my mind racing as fast as my feet. But then it hit me. I wasn't just some scared guest anymore. I was Alex Carter, the guy who built a business from scratch, the guy who solved problems for a living. It was time to turn the tables on Mr. Whitmore. I remembered the security room I had seen on the first day, filled with monitors and gadgets. If I could just get in there, maybe I could find a way to unlock the doors, to call for help. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. Sneaking back into the main building, I used every trick I knew to stay hidden. I felt like a character in one of those spy movies, ducking into shadows, holding my breath every time I heard footsteps. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. Finally, I made it to the security room. The door was locked, but that wasn't going to stop me. I found a paperclip, bent it, and after a few tense minutes, I heard the click of the lock giving way. Inside, I was surrounded by screens showing every corner of the retreat. It was creepy, seeing how Whitmore had been watching us all. Now for the hard part, hacking into the system. I'm no tech genius, but I know my way around computers. I started typing, clicking, trying every trick I knew to bypass their security. Time was running out, and I could hear the distant sound of footsteps searching for me. Then, just as I was ready to give up, I got in. I deactivated the lockdown and got the doors to open. But I wasn't done yet. I needed to call for help. The retreat was too remote for anyone to hear us scream, and our phones were still locked away. I scavenged the room and found some wires, a broken radio, and a few other tech pieces. My hands were shaking as I put them together, remembering old science projects from school. It was crude, but it was my only hope. I adjusted the frequency, hoping against hope that someone would pick up my distress signal. And then I spoke into the makeshift device, my voice a mix of fear and hope. "This is Alex Carter at the Valentine retreat. We need help. Please, anyone out there, send help." I repeated the message over and over, not knowing if it was even transmitting, but I had to try. I had to believe that someone, somewhere would hear us and come to our rescue. There I was, sitting in the back of an ambulance, watching the flashing lights cut through the night. The police had stormed the Valentine retreat, and Whitmore was in handcuffs, his twisted game finally over. As I watched him being led away, a mix of relief and disbelief washed over me. In the quiet aftermath, I had time to think, really think, about everything that had happened. I had gone to that retreat looking for love, or at least some kind of connection. But what I found was a nightmare that taught me more about myself than I could have ever imagined. I realized that in my search for something real, I had almost fallen into a trap of fake promises and dangerous lies. It's funny, in a world where we can get anything with a click or a swipe, we sometimes forget that the most important things take time. Love, trust, connection. You can't rush these things. They're not items on a checklist. They're the messy, beautiful parts of life that make us truly human. As I sat there, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunrise, I felt a change in myself. The retreat, in all its horror, had stripped away the noise, the distractions, and left me with a clarity I hadn't known I was missing. I didn't need a retreat or an app to find love. I needed to be present, to be open, to be myself. I walked away from the Valentine retreat with a new appreciation for the simple, genuine moments of life. A laugh shared with a friend, a conversation with a stranger, the quiet comfort of being alone and feeling at peace. Real love, I realized, can't be forced or manufactured. It's found in the unexpected moments, in the giving and receiving of kindness, in the sharing of our true selves with the world. That's the real lesson of the Valentine retreat. One that came at a high price, but one I'll never forget. Love is out there, in its own time, in its own way. And I'm ready to meet it, authentically, bravely, as me.